Nolan Wells went to Horn Island with friends on the 4th of July. The boat that carried him there left the island without him. Nearly 8 hours passed before the Coast Guard was reportedly notified. 2 days later, Nolan's body was found near the island's northwest end. Since then, the case has become a battle of timelines, phone evidence, altered or reposted videos, disputed audio interviews, autopsy questions, lawyers, and online theories. Trent Out Loud, Willie D, Nerdy Pink Panda, J. Megan, Tisa Tells, Officer Tatum, Nancy Grace, Don Lemon, Poetik Flakko, BiggKish, and others have all pushed different pieces of the story into public view. But millions of views do not turn a claim into evidence. An enhanced word in a distress call is not a confession. A media interview is not sworn testimony, and criticism of a medical examiner is not proof that evidence was hidden. Today, Couch Watch with Ken is rebuilding the Nolan Wells case from the beginning. We will show what is verified, what is reported, what is disputed, and what still does not have an answer. Welcome back to Couch Watch with Ken. Facts, context, straight talk. If you want hard questions without reckless accusations, subscribe now. Here are the ground rules. No one discussed in this video has been charged with causing Nolan's death. Authorities have not publicly announced a suspect. The independent autopsy did not determine a cause or manner of death. Our purpose is not to convict people online. It is to test every public story against the available record. Nolan Xavier Wells was 18 years old, a college football player, a son, a teammate, and a young man whose family described him as social, responsible, and unlikely to separate from the group that brought him to an offshore island. He had played wide receiver and was preparing for another season at Southwest Mississippi Community College. On July 3rd, Nolan cooked salmon for his parents. His family remembers him hugging and kissing his mother before spending the night with friends. Those details matter because a case can quickly turn a person into a symbol. Nolan was not a hashtag. He was a young man whose parents expected him to come home. His father later told CBS that Nolan normally stayed with his group. His parents therefore rejected the early suggestion that he simply chose to remain alone on Horn Island. Friends would later say Nolan believed he could return with other people. That conflict became the first major fault line in the case. The most stable part of the timeline comes from boat GPS data obtained from the Mississippi Department of Marine Resources. At approximately 9:56 in the morning on July 4th, the boat left the mainland. At 11:14, it arrived at Horn Island. Nolan was on that trip to the island. The disputed period begins in the afternoon. Public accounts place Nolan's last confirmed sighting at about 3 p.m. Some friends say he was spending time with a young woman and refused repeated requests to leave. Nolan's parents say that was not his character. The young woman's reported account that Nolan planned to return with the boys appeared to conflict with the friend's claim that he intended to find another ride. At 4:31 p.m., GPS data shows the boat leaving Horn Island. CBS reported Nolan was not aboard when it departed. The boat reached its original dock around 5:44, entered Fort Bayou around 5:52, and returned around 6:06. At 7:19, it went to the Fort Bayou boat launch and then moved over land, apparently on a trailer, to the owner's residence. Those coordinates establish where the boat went. They do not, by themselves, establish why Nolan remained, what happened to him after the last sighting, or what each person believed at the time. Officer Tatum's interviews gave Warren Hudson and Trayston Shepard a long platform to explain the friend's position. Warren said Nolan repeatedly refused to board and that changing boats at Horn Island was not unusual. The interviews also disputed a viral pool photograph that some viewers thought proved Nolan reached the mainland. The friends said that photograph was taken a week earlier, on June 27th. That correction is important, but an interview is still a claim to be checked. Investigators need original photographs, original videos, device data, location records, and witness statements, not just confidence on camera. After the boat left Horn Island, it reportedly began taking on water. Audio described online as a 911 call appears in reporting to be an emergency or marine assistance call. The exact recipient and full, original recording matter. Calling every version a 911 call can create a false impression about who was contacted and when. Nancy Grace, Tisa Tells, and other creators have examined enhanced versions of the audio. Some listeners believe they hear words such as Nolan, is he dead, or language suggesting everybody was aboard. Others hear something different. Here is the problem. Enhancement can make speech clearer, but it can also exaggerate artifacts in a compressed file. Once a host tells listeners what a faint phrase supposedly says, expectation can shape what they hear. That is why a clipped social media version is not enough. The right questions are forensic. Where is the original recording? Was it exported or compressed? Is there a complete call log? Can a qualified examiner compare multiple channels and identify each speaker? What did the caller know at that moment? One disputed word cannot establish Nolan's location. The call is a lead and a timeline marker, not a final answer. Reporting says a friend notified the Coast Guard around 11 p.m., with Nolan's mother contacting authorities around midnight. If the friends believed Nolan had another ride, investigators must establish when that belief changed and what caused the delay. Nolan's family and coach began searching early the next morning. Local, state, and federal agencies joined the search, including the Coast Guard, the Mississippi Department of Marine Resources, and the National Park Service. The United Cajun Navy also assisted. On July 6th, at approximately 8:40 in the morning, Nolan's body was recovered near the northwest end of Horn Island. Dental records confirmed his identity. The United Cajun Navy later released a 22-page report containing its timeline, observations, photographs, and material collected from social media. The organization did not determine criminal responsibility, and some of the report relied on screenshots or claims that were not independently verified. Treating that report as an official police finding would be a mistake. Even a clothing description became distorted. A public statement was summarized as Nolan being fully clothed, while the organization later clarified that he was wearing swim trunks. That is a small example of a large problem. One imprecise phrase can become a suspicious headline before the underlying description is corrected. Soon after Nolan disappeared, a video circulated in which people could be heard arguing about a phone. Nolan's family and attorney initially questioned whether Nolan's voice was captured. Trayston Shepard later said the voice demanding a phone was his, not Nolan's, and another friend supported that account. That leaves two separate issues: identifying the voice and authenticating the file. The original file may contain creation time, device information, edit history, and other metadata. A repost downloaded from social media may lose much of that information. Trent Out Loud has repeatedly pressed Officer Tatum and others over whether original metadata was produced. Trent says Tatum indicated metadata would be provided and that it had not arrived at the time of his report. That is Trent's description of a private exchange, not an official forensic result. Still, the principle is sound. If a photograph or video is offered as proof of a time, place, or person, the original matters. The answer is not for one YouTuber to declare another one guilty of deception. The answer is to preserve the file and let qualified examiners authenticate it. Nolan's physical phone is even more important. His mother said it was recovered from one of the friends on the mainland. The device may contain messages, calls, cloud activity, photographs, deleted items, location history, and account access. It may also contain nothing decisive. Until a proper examination occurs, nobody should promise that the phone will solve the case. Another turning point came from Judge Ashlee Cole, Warren Hudson's stepmother. In a public statement, she said Warren last saw Nolan around 3 p.m., that the boat left around 4, 30 because of mechanical or water problems, and that Nolan chose to stay and return with others. Online posts sometimes describe Cole as the judge overseeing Nolan's case. The public reporting reviewed for this documentary does not establish that. She is a chancery judge and a family member of one of the young men, not the judge presiding over Nolan's death investigation. Her public position deserves examination like every other account, but her title does not make her statement a court finding. It also does not justify harassment. Cole, witnesses, and officials reportedly received threats, and multiple people were later charged in connection with alleged threats. Those are not arrests for Nolan's death. The distinction is critical. Asking whether a judge's public statement influenced the conversation is fair. Threatening her or assuming her position proves a cover-up is not. The Nolan Wells story did not become national because of one reporter. It grew through a network of creators, podcasts, live streams, family interviews, and news outlets. Trent Out Loud concentrated on metadata, the phone, the autopsy limitations, and contradictions between the friend's interviews and the public record. His strongest contribution is the insistence that confidence is not authentication. His more dramatic titles and conclusions still require the same proof he demands from others. Officer Tatum put the friend's accounts in front of a large audience and physically returned to Horn Island. That created useful first-person material. But a sympathetic interview can also allow witnesses to tell a polished story without adversarial questioning or access to the full evidence file. Willie D brought community skepticism and criticism of how media personalities framed the friend's explanations. Don Lemon centered Nolan's parents, the lawyers, the fake toxicology report, and the legal escalation. Nancy Grace used a true crime format to highlight autopsy questions, subpoenas, and enhanced audio. Tisa Tells spent extended time listening to and analyzing the emergency recording. Poetik Flakko, Nerdy Pink Panda, J. Megan, and BiggKish helped circulate social media material, compare interviews, and keep unresolved questions in the public conversation. But for smaller or fast-moving channels, titles, deleted live streams, clipped reposts, and second-hand screenshots can be difficult to authenticate. Their work can point investigators or journalists toward a lead. It should not be described as a verified finding unless the underlying source can be checked. This is the standard for every creator, including Couch Watch with Ken. A creator may notice a contradiction. A creator may locate a public post. A creator may ask the right question before a major network does. But creators do not possess subpoena power, laboratory access, or the complete investigative file. The best way to use all this coverage is as a map. Which claim has an original document? Which statement can be compared with GPS? Which photo has metadata? Which audio is complete? Which headline is only repeating another headline? The internet is valuable when many eyes examine a public record. It becomes dangerous when repetition is mistaken for corroboration. The state autopsy was performed on July 7th through the Mississippi State Medical Examiner's Office. Its final findings have not been publicly released because officials say the investigation and grand jury process remain active. An independent autopsy was performed on July 10th by Dr. Roger Mitchell. The report, announced later in July, classified the cause and manner of death as undetermined pending further investigation. It reported no fractures, lacerations, or deep injuries. It documented a red area on the posterior soft tissue, but did not establish what caused it. Decomposition limited the examination. The independent pathologist also could not examine certain organs and neck structures because they had been removed and retained during the state autopsy. Online, this became the claim that Nolan's throat was missing or secretly withheld. That is stronger than the available evidence. Medical examiners routinely remove and retain organs, tissues, slides, and samples for testing. The independent report itself acknowledged that retention can be common and appropriate. The legitimate unanswered questions are more precise. What was retained? Why? How was it preserved? What testing was performed? And can it be made available for additional examination? Dr. Stacey Turner leads Mississippi State Medical Examiner's Office. Her tenure has included efforts to modernize an office that historically struggled with staffing and backlogs. That context belongs in the story. There are also documented controversies. In the Damian Cameron case, Turner's office classified the cause of death as undetermined, while 3 independent forensic pathologists later reportedly concluded the death was a homicide. In the Trey Reed case, the state office ruled suicide, and the family publicly disputed that conclusion. Other Mississippi families have also criticized drowning or undetermined rulings, although not every disputed case is directly linked to Turner personally. Those cases justify scrutiny of methods, documentation, and transparency. They do not prove Nolan's autopsy was falsified. A past disagreement between pathologists is not evidence of a present cover-up. Former medical examiner Michael Baden also cautioned that the independent findings did not, by themselves, point to foul play. That is an important counterpoint. A serious review must examine evidence that challenges the suspicious theory as carefully as evidence that supports it. So the responsible conclusion is not shady medical examiner exposed. It is this: Mississippi's forensic system has a troubled history. Dr. Turner's office has faced credible public disputes, and Nolan's case requires a complete accounting of every sample, image, test, and conclusion. Now to the handwritten letter that some posts call secret evidence. The verified reporting located for this documentary describes anonymous hate mail sent to Nolan's mother shortly before his funeral. That act was cruel and disturbing, but no public source reviewed here authenticates the letter as a confession, identifies its author, or connects it to Nolan's death. There are other letters in the public story: preservation letters from attorneys, a demand concerning the phone, the Congressional Black Caucus request, and Judge Cole's public social media statement. None is a secret handwritten confession. If a creator presents a different document, ask for the complete original image, envelope, postmark, date, provenance, and law enforcement authentication. A screenshot with dramatic music is not chain of custody. We can condemn the hate mail without transforming it into evidence it is not. This case has already produced a warning about manufactured evidence. Authorities said a toxicology report circulating online was fake. That means viewers must be careful with every leaked-looking page, text message, audio enhancement, and alleged insider claim. Official-looking documents can be generated in minutes. Dates can be cropped. Screenshots can omit the message before or after. Artificial intelligence can clone a voice or create a convincing video. A high view count does not authenticate any of it. When Don Lemon, Trent, Willie D, or another commentator flags a new document, the next step should be verification, not immediate belief or immediate dismissal. Who created it? Who received it? Does the issuing agency confirm it? Does the document number match? Is the original available? The fake toxicology report does not prove every leak is false. It proves the burden of verification is necessary. By mid-July, attorneys for Nolan's family and the district attorney's office said they had discussed a joint forensic inspection of Nolan's phone. By mid-August, reporting indicated that examination still had not occurred. The family said it wanted a jointly coordinated process, possibly involving an independent laboratory or federal assistance. The district attorney's office maintained that the phone needed to be surrendered to law enforcement. The dispute appeared to center on custody, protocol, scope, access, and return of the device. That delay is documented. A cover-up is not. A written protocol could answer the practical questions: who takes possession, who makes the forensic image, who receives a verified copy, what dates and accounts may be searched, how deleted material is handled, and how every transfer is recorded. Officials have said the case will be presented to a grand jury. Grand jury secrecy can limit what prosecutors explain publicly. But secrecy without a clear process also creates an information vacuum, and that vacuum is being filled by fake reports and online certainty. On August 12th, members of the Congressional Black Caucus asked the Attorney General and FBI Director for an independent federal review and assistance, including consideration of federal civil rights law. Nolan's parents later appeared publicly with Ben Crump, Reverend Al Sharpton, and Congresswoman Lucy McBath to repeat that demand. The NAACP then joined the family's legal effort. This is a major escalation. But keep the language exact. Federal review requested does not mean federal criminal investigation opened. Public sources available for this documentary do not show that the Justice Department has announced such an investigation into Nolan's death. Here is what the public record supports. Verified. Nolan traveled to Horn Island on July 4th. The boat left at 4:31 without him. Friends reported boat trouble. He was reported missing late that night. His body was recovered 2 days later. 2 autopsies were conducted. The independent examination could not determine cause or manner. Nolan's phone has been at the center of a documented forensic access dispute. A federal review has been requested, reported but contested. Whether Nolan chose to stay, what ride he expected, the precise last sighting time, what the distressed callers said, and how every friend understood the situation. Unverified. A secret confession letter, a genuine leaked toxicology report, proof that an enhanced voice says, "Is he dead?" Proof that organs were removed to hide evidence, or proof that any named friend, official, judge, creator, or medical examiner committed a crime. The questions that still deserve answers are straightforward. What is the complete minute-by-minute timeline from the final sighting to the missing person report? What do the original media files show? What is recoverable from Nolan's phone and cloud accounts? What does the full marine assistance recording say? Where are the retained tissues and what testing was performed? What will the official autopsy conclude? And when will the public receive an explanation that does not compromise the grand jury? Justice is not choosing the most dramatic theory. Justice is preserving evidence, testing competing explanations, documenting every step, and following the facts wherever they lead. My bottom line is this. The public has legitimate reasons to demand a stronger timeline, a neutral phone examination, transparent forensic documentation, and independent review. The creators named in this video have kept pressure on the case and surfaced questions that should not be ignored. But none of us should turn unresolved questions into a verdict. Nolan Wells deserves more than viral certainty. His family deserves answers that can survive a courtroom, a laboratory, and public scrutiny. Which evidence should be prioritized first? The phone, the original audio, the boat timeline, or the complete autopsy file? Tell me in the comments, but keep it factual and respectful. Do not threaten, harass, or publish private information. If you want the next Nolan Wells update with facts, context, and straight talk, like this video, subscribe to Couch Watch with Ken, and turn on notifications.